Hello and welcome to another podcast and video from Fantasy Football Scouts. Here we will be looking at the press conferences that have taken place so far for Gameweek 1. We're also planning a second look at the press conferences on Friday when more managers will be chatting to the media, so look out for and listen out for that. In the meantime, my name is Joe and today I'm joined by Neale. Neale, welcome. How are you?
I'm very well, thanks, Joe. Yeah, very busy, but looking forward to it all getting underway tomorrow.
Yes, I know, it's a very exciting time. I'm sick to death of my team at the moment, and I've given up tinkering with it now. So I'm entering a second day of no tinkering with my team, so I feel quite pleased with that. But I'm sure the team news will change that, and I've already potentially got one in mind. So before we start looking at the press conferences, it might be good to tell people about some of the members area features that they can tap into at Fantasy Football Scouts. So yeah, do you want to tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, I mean, there's lots. We've put out an article last night based on all the articles that we've written over the summer. So there's a lot of head-to-head comparisons in there. Adini versus Coleman, Mane versus Salah, things like that. There is a whole ream of player stats and things that you can access. You can customize tables. You can look at, again, head-to-head comparisons between players, head-to-head comparisons between teams. You can look at data going all the way back to 2011, should you so wish. There's lots and lots and lots of stuff. I think some of which I don't know about. So, all available for $17.50.
Yeah, there's tons.
My best sales pitch.
There's tons in there. The one I've been looking at most this week has been the Rate My Team tool. Because I just find, because the thing about that is because the professor invented it, and he uses using really computer technology there, so it's less personalised, so it's got less of that kind of psychological bias that us humans have, and so I quite like it early on as well. So it looks at things like bookies odds as well, but it also carries in basically just whether the computer thinks they'll score and turn up as well, and so I kind of like that early on. So any draft I get, I kind of put that into there, and always hopeful it can get up to 60 points in a week. That's my goal. Doesn't always happen, but there we go. And also the comparison tool you mentioned there, that's quite good for those 50-50 calls as well. But let's move on to the team news that we have in so far. Now, not many, I suppose, top four sides having their press conferences, but Liverpool have today. What have they been saying?
Yeah, this is the big one today. I think there's been 8 or 9 so far, one of which is embargoed. We'll discuss that later. But yeah, Liverpool is the headline act. The big question, I suppose, is whether Sadio Mane was going to be fit enough to feature at all, let alone start. Well, Klopp says he's looking good. He's trained with the team for the first time yesterday. That was Wednesday, but he has been training individually before that. He's had a post-African Cup of Nations breather for a fortnight, but he's looking good. Now, Klopp said we will see regarding his involvement. It's probably more optimistic than I anticipated because traditionally, Klopp has given 3-week breaks to his players who've been involved over the summer on international duty. But he's back in the reckoning. Whether he's fit enough to start, I still have my doubts, I think. So Salah and Firmino, for example, they've got an extra week of training under the belt. They both started in the Community Shield last weekend. I firmly believe they'll start against Norwich. It's whether or not he deems a home fixture against an injury-ravaged Norwich side worthy of risking money from the start. And I suspect it might be Origi on the left. This is my interpretation. And then Mane coming on later on. Mm-hmm. Either way, if Mane does start, then I expect managed minutes.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think that Klopp sort of learned his lesson early on in his time at Liverpool. There was, I think it was his first season. Towards the end of the season, they were involved in Europe, and he decided to put the kids out against the likes of Swansea, who weren't too good at the time, and they got hammered, and that kept happening. And I remember Klopp being quite down about that, and it was almost like he was a man kicking himself. He realised that he'd made a mistake, and he hasn't really made that mistake. He has done that old cliche of looking at the next match at a time, and I think you could be right there in terms of Mane. But I also think, on the whole, it's going to be a massively strong side. But yeah, I think you're right about Mane. I think he'll manage those, but he's certainly not going to rest the likes of Salah and Firmino and those types as well. So I think those captaining Salah should feel quite happy. I just wondered, did he say anything about James Milner? Now, as a dullard manager, and I'm particularly interested in a dullard player, because he's quite an intriguing, cheap enabler, perhaps, for people.
Yeah, and he was the one doubt, I think, injury-wise, going into this weekend. With Mane, it was match fitness. With Milner, it was this muscle problem that caused him to miss last weekend's game against Manchester City. That was purely precautionary. He is fine. He's going to be able to be in the squad at least. And there was a lot of competition for places in that Liverpool midfield. And Milner, while he's not someone a lot of people will be interested in, he is Liverpool's first-choice penalty taker. We are seeing VAR for the first time this season. We're not quite sure how that's going to manifest itself in terms of additional penalty awards, or fewer, perhaps. But he is an important figure, really, in terms of set pieces and penalties, because we've seen Salah last season as the deputy penalty taker prosper when Milner wasn't playing. Also, frustratingly, when Milner came on as a substitute, I think twice in the season running, and then within minutes, Liverpool were awarded a penalty, which Salah would have taken had Milner not been on the pitch. But also, he eats into Alexander-Arnold's free kicks and corners whenever he's playing. So really, if you're an owner of either of those two players, Salah or Alexander-Arnold, then you probably want Milner not playing.
Or how about this? You're an owner of those two players and get Milner in as your third player. Win-win.
Well, possibly, yeah. If you're not too convinced by Liverpool's defence in pre-season, which I haven't been, and obviously Mane is maybe not quite up to sharpness yet. Yeah, cheeky opening day punt on Milner might be the way to go. But as I say, there's a lot of competition for places in that central midfield. Even more so now. Oxlade-Chamberlain's near in fitness, and Naby Keita's also back as well. So I would not count on him for starts.
Also, Liverpool involved in the Super Cup. Do we call it that in Europe as well? So possibility of some rotation, but as I said at the beginning, those lessons of playing Swansea and being involved in Europe many seasons ago probably linger. So let's move on, I think. Let's move on to West Ham. Now, there's a number of new players there, and also a number of familiar faces as well. But yeah, what's Pellegrini been saying about West Ham ahead of their fixture, which is a tough one against City?
Yeah, Man City's got a real hex over West Ham, haven't they? Certainly in East London, where they've beaten them at least by 4 goals in at least last four fixtures in all competitions. It looks good on the injury front, apart from Mark Noble, who's got this, I think it's a dead leg. So he's not going to be able to feature. Lucas Fabianski is. Now, he was a slight there with a groin problem. I think he pulled up in a warm-up in pre-season and hasn't featured since, but he's back and he's been declared fit, and which I think is a good thing for West Ham, because the backup, who I've seen a couple of times, hasn't been great. And West Ham's defence in general, we saw this last season, isn't the best. So I do fancy their attack. I've been impressed by the likes of Lanzini and Fornals in pre-season, but I expect City to exploit that defence, even with Fabianski in goal.
Yeah, I know there are a lot of players there. I'm playing wait and see in terms of my team with West Ham midfielders, but I'm fairly certain I'm going to have a West Ham midfielder in there very soon. I just don't know which one yet. I'd like to see. I also want to get City out of the way first. That's a terrible first fixture for them. But yeah, I think West Ham could be a very interesting side, but for this time, I think we're more talking about them, as you say, in terms of how many goals City will score against them, not who will turn up. Let's move on to Watford as well, another team that traditionally start the season well. Last season, I believe they won the first 4 games in a row, something like that. So they're always of interest, and they've always got very kind of cheap and mid-priced assets that can be quite good value for money early on. But yeah, what's developments have come from the Watford press conference?
I don't know, because it's been embargoed till 5 p.m.
Okay.
So yeah, we won't hear anything for another couple of hours. And thankfully it is today and not tomorrow, because we've had this before, haven't we, on a Friday deadline where Gracia's press conference has been embargoed till 5 p.m. We've got 2 hours basically to digest the team news. I'm not sure why they do this. I've never got an answer for that, but Yeah, we've still got flags over, I believe, Delafeu, and not flagged is Pereira, but he's laid back from the Copa America
Okay, so the
with
firm
Argentina.
message there for people watching and listening is from 5 o'clock tonight on
Yeah,
Thursday. You can keep an eye out on social media, keep an eye on Fantasy Football Scout, because you're going to find out some of these unanswered questions, particularly Delafeo. Also, they've signed Danny Welbeck as well, so it'll be interesting
yeah,
to see what's been said about him and whether he'll start. So, I mean, there's some quotes from the managers already about him, so we get a bit of early. This hasn't been embargoed, by the way, which is simply he's a very good striker or winger, says the manager. He can play in two different positions, so winger or striker. He's always attacking, very fast player and a strong finisher. To have a player of his experience and quality is good for the team. The second bit of that says to me he's good for the dressing room and good squad player. But the first bit indicates that he's looking to mix up his formations a bit. And traditionally they've been playing with two up top. Maybe they'll go three up top. I don't know, maybe mix it around a bit. So we don't know just yet. Once again, it's one of these unanswered questions. So the team news later today might tell us more. But obviously Gameweek 1 is going to give us that early piece of gold information that we need for the early games. Let's move on to some other teams. Now, looking at promoted teams in general. So we've got 3 promoted teams up. We've got Sheffield United. We've got Norwich as well. And we've also got Aston Villa. So yeah, what's been happening at their press conferences?
yeah. Good news, Sheffield United. They've got a fully fit squad, so I assume that means Jack O'Connell's fit. He's been missing for a couple of pre-season games, I think a minor injury. So clean bill of health there, by the looks of it. Villa, James Chester, who's just permanently crocked, really. He's out this weekend, hamstring problem. Now Norwich is where the real issues lie. And of course, they're playing Liverpool tomorrow night, and they're already quite a leaky team. They conceded, I think, was it 57 goals? And that was winning the championship last season. I think that's 16 more than Sheffield United shipped. Now they are without 2 of their centre halves. Christoph Zimmerman, who we thought was going to be a big doubt anyway, and Tim Klose, who is probably third choice. He's also out, so we're likely to see Grant Hanley, who's a 4 million rated defender, alongside Ben Godfrey, I think, at centre half. So yeah, they've got problems at centre back. They've also got 2 players out in defensive midfield. So that's Alex Tetty and their new signing, Amadou. So yeah, a bit short at the back, and they've never been particularly strong in that regard. So I am now firmly behind a Salah captaincy.
Yeah, that is it. That particular piece of news really interesting for those backing Salah, who's not 50% owned, not 60% owned. I think his ownership something around 30%,
Yeah,
40%.
around 35, something like that.
So there's a hell of a lot of managers that don't even own Salah. So those yourself and myself as well, who own and will captain him, good news as well. With Hanley as well, good news that he'll start at 4 million. But I think I saw a tweet from you earlier say that he's going to get 0 points, but for playing this time. So we're anticipating lots of goals against him, and he's going to lose a lot of points there, rather than just simply not have them for not turning up. So, you know, you get what you pay for there. Yeah. What about
Exactly.
what about other promoted team news?
That's it. Yeah, I've covered the other 2 there. Yeah, Sheffield United.
Done.
Yeah,
Yeah.
clean bill of health, and then Villa's just got Chester. I think
Yeah.
I'll look into Douglas Luiz as well. I think he's got his work permit now. So I'm waiting to watch Dean Smith's press conference as a whole. I've seen the headline news so far, and I'll keep you abreast of any more developments as I see them.
Okay, and we've had 3 more. Is this right? 3 more press conferences taking place today. Brighton, Burnley, and Southampton. I just can't clump them all together because they're all of interest.
Yeah.
Lots of enablers there, and particularly for Brighton, a good early run in general for the medium term. But Burnley have a great early fixture against Southampton. And Southampton okay fixture, I guess, against Burnley, but it turns a bit sour for both of those latter 2 teams later on in the season. So yeah, any news out of Brighton, Burnley, and Southampton?
Yeah, well, Burnley have got a major doubt hanging over Robbie Brady, who is sort of deputy left winger, really. So nothing really troubling the first team. He's got a rib fracture. Brighton, I've only seen the long-term injuries. So that's Basuma and Izquierdo, who I think is just permanently red flagged in FPL. I've seen some comments about the new signing, the new lad from Brentford, £20 million striker. Can you pronounce his name for me before I make a fool of myself?
Mbappe?
Mbappe, is it? Yeah, okay. Potter said he's looking good. Whether or not he'll feature, I mean, he signed on, what was it, Tuesday? So very late in the day. Obviously, he hasn't played in pre-season at all. Not a similar type of forward to Murray, really, is he? He's more diminutive and
He has primarily been used as a number 9, but he can be a winger as well. And the front three looks set to be Murray or Mapai, but we think Murray at first initially, and Trossard there on the wing, and Lecardia as well on the wing. So, but as you said, it could change. But I think at the moment those three are fairly nailed on. Which with Trossard, that could be quite good. Izquierdo, I guess, would be competition for him, but he just hasn't. Injury and just hasn't had the minutes. So yeah, I think Trossard looks safe, and so does Lecardia. But yeah, God, very frustrating up front. I wish they'd signed their new striker about a month or so ago. We could have seen him in pre-season, but lots of unknowns there. Yeah. What about Burnley and Southampton?
Yeah, Burnley just obviously Stephen Ford has this long-term calf problem, and as I said, Robbie Brady has this rib issue. I think other than that, they're looking good. I think that's yet to be reflected in FPL. I think Tarkovsky's going to be fine. Southampton, I believe, are the remaining team I'm discussed. So this is a two-part press conference, as is often the case with Hasenhüttl. The second part is embargoed till late tonight, and I sense that might be the part that has the injury news. But he said that he's got a lot of difficult choices to make in terms of inclusion. Moussa Djenepo, who's the summer signing, who's been playing for Mali in the African Cup of Nations, he's back, but building up fitness, so I wonder if he might not be involved. So nothing to report really from Southampton or Burnley or Brighton, apart from the occasional sort of fringe player who's out. So as you might expect at this time of the season, sort of cleanish builds of health.
Well, yeah, it is. I'm quite, because I'm a boring dull manager. I'm interested in those fringe boring players. So, say for example, Charlie Taylor. I noticed he played for the under-23s this week. He's been playing a bit in pre-season. I know that Sean Dyche he's a stickler for fitness, and he only brings in players when they're, I don't know, I'm not going to do his voice, but I can just only imagine him saying 110% fitness somewhere along there, and I'm not sure Charlie Taylor is it, so Peters could come in for him, but Loughton is same price, could be a good alternative there. Someone I'm certainly looking at now, because I certainly don't want to be going into that game thinking I've got a nice cheap Burnley defender, and I haven't. So I'll go for that.
Yeah, I should say Ben Gibson also played in that kickabout on Tuesday. It was a reserve team game. So 90 minutes for Taylor and Gibson in that match. So as you say, that might suggest that they're still working their way back up to full match fitness. So it could be Eric Peters at left back on Saturday.
Yes, indeed. But for now, just to say that we have another video and podcast planned tomorrow, as I said, to sum up the remaining press conferences taking place. So please do look out for that. We've covered as many as we can today, as many have taken place today, and we've given some hints about those, about the embargoed ones that took place today. But some real heavy hitters press conferences tomorrow, the likes of City as well, particularly keenly looked at as well. Interesting to find out the extent of Leroy Sané's industry, his industry even, but also his injury, and whether how that's going to affect the makeup of the team, where Sterling could play, for example. So I'm sure we'll talk about that tomorrow. But for now, Neil, thanks so much for joining me.
Yeah, see you tomorrow, Joe. Bye-bye.
Bye.